Hey, everybody, it's Tuesday night. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Where are you? You're at the Black Cat Lounge, where the elite meet next to the dumpster transfer station on your way out of town. That's right. This is Depew, New York, where the beautiful people all hang out. And, well, some of the not so beautiful people. Anyway, we have a great show for you tonight. And earlier, you guys saw my Ouija boards that I just picked up, and you guys know how. I love my Ouija boards. Ouija boards are some of the best things I've ever owned in my life. And it's just one of those things that I can't help but enjoy. Now, I just want to let everybody know that we have a fantastic guest tonight, and I am so thrilled. People don't realize how important it is for me to really get a chance to uh, talk to such great people. And I think you guys are going to be really surprised because, well, this is a person who's a lot deeper than what you guys will go and like what you guys have seen on TV. And he's a great guy. Debbie, how are you? Debbie Emerson's in the room, and she's a longtime viewer. Today, we have someone who is a writer. We have someone who's a director. We have a paranormal investigator who is, you know, if I knew which direction he lived in, I would kowtow in that direction. So just to let you know that I am so thrilled that he is on. Hi, Peg. How are you? Good to see you on tonight. Excuse me. And he was seen as the tech guy on the Holzer Files. And I'm just going to tell you guys right now, the Holzer Files has a very special uh, part of my heart because first of all, growing up, there was two people that were my major influences when I was growing up. One was Edgar Casey, of course, because every medium psychic I know of my generation cut their teeth on Edgar Casey works and books and all that, the ARE. But the other one is Hans Holzer. They were the people out there in the paranormal, in the metaphysical realms that really made a difference. So the show to me was really something that was very, very intrinsic to me. And of course, seeing Alexandra Holzer on there always made me feel good. Chris Chiesla's in the room. Chris, by the way, you're looking beautiful. Anyway, let's welcome our guest today, the one and only, the man with that beautiful Southern drawl. All the women just love hanging out with him and looking at him because he is a beautiful person, a true humanitarian. He's effervescent. He's iridescent. Shane Pittman. Shane, how are you, brother? Thank you for being on tonight.
I'm doing good, man. Thank you so much for having me and for all the accolades that probably were not deserved, but thank you so much. I'm excited to be on.
This is fantastic because, we were talking a little bit off the air, and it's so hard to talk to people at conferences because you're passing, you're going, you got to meet somebody, you got to be on a panel, you got to be here, you got to be there. And I think we met like 3 times when we were in Michigan, and that was it. And we didn't get a chance to talk. And I'll tell you what, Shane, I regretted it. And it was just so nice that you could make time in your busy schedule for tonight. And it means a lot to me. Now, Shane, right up front, a lot of people love to know the backstories. And I'm a backstory guy, not a backstreet guy. Well, I grew up on back streets. That's a whole different story. But I'd love to know. I mean, you seem like you are a very grounded, down to earth guy. And usually that type of person I won't say paranormal investigators are flighty, but I will say that type of person is not the type of person that kind of jumps into, the paranormal world. What brought you into it?
That's a very good question. I grew up in a really religious household, right? So it was fundamental Christians. It was really religious household. I had my first experience when I was 6 years old, and it was a vision, and it's kind of a long drawn out thing. It'd take me a long time to talk about, but it's something that 31 years later, I remember every vivid detail of that vision. I went to my mom with it and told her, and she was like, this is really significant. Something's going on. And from there, my teenage years, I would have strange and unusual things happen to me. And it got to a point to where whenever I was old enough to start researching, I would get the Hans Holzer books. I would get all of the, search out the pioneers in the field and try to dig into the research and study more. And then I've always been a tech guy too. I've always got to have the latest gear and all of the cool tech stuff. I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to that stuff. So once I found out that there were pieces of equipment that could test some of the things that were going on in my life with atmosphere and otherwise, different things that I could use to test and validate some of the experiences, I was hooked at that point. So then fast forward to I'd investigate some on my own and came across this method called the Holzer method. And I was like, what is this? I kind of want to know more. So I found Alexandra Holzer, and I was like, let me reach out to her because no one would know better than her. And she would explain that to me in great detail. We became friends. She was doing the hunt with Holzer. I helped out with that some, where she would travel different places and teach people about the Holzer method and what that was all about and investigate with them. She did a lot of really cool work in that field, and she's still doing that. And so that was 7 or 8 years before Holzer Files was even a thing. So that's kind of cool how synchronicities and stuff like that happen. But here I am today. I got a really good opportunity. I was really blessed to be a part of the Holzer Files. For people who do not know, it has not been renewed for a third season. But Dave, Cindy, and I, and Alexandra and Gabe, we're all doing new projects. There's some new things in the works, and we're excited to bring that to you whenever the time comes.
I can't wait. Now, first of all, you know what? Not just because you're here. I'm going to come right out and say there's a couple shows that I really tried to always watch, and I'm going to be honest with you. You know, even though I've done some reality shit, but uh, you know what I mean. So I've
Yeah.
done some reality TV stuff and some good stuff and some bad stuff, but Holzer Files to me always was great because it had a great crossover. It had the past which I could relate to, but it also had like all the modern stuff that that I could relate to too, being like I'm a tech head.
Right.
But also, I mean, I appreciated Cindy as a medium myself. I appreciated her abilities. I appreciated the way she did automatic writing, and because that's nobody really does that anymore, and I love that she did that. And of course,
A lot of people do it. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
A lot of people do it. I don't think it's like showcased on shows that much. So like
No, I
I've seen,
agree.
yeah. So I know there's Tyler Henry. He does a form of it. He's the Hollywood medium where he
Right.
scribbles. So he does little forms of that. So yeah, but you're right. It's not really showcased as much on these different shows for sure. And just a segue, if y'all are seeing this little glare right here, my window it's the sun's shining right through, so it might be glaring on this 5-head of mine. But if y'all can just ignore that, we're
You're looking. All I gotta say is you're looking beautiful.
Oh,
You're
thank you,
absolutely
buddy.
looking
So
beautiful.
are you.
Wait a minute.
So
I'm just going to do like this. If I had sunglasses, I would be wearing them. You're just so effervescent today.
As
But
from the glare of the forehead, it's nothing else.
hey, let's not talk about foreheads now. Come on. This dome is really this dome is already reflecting things. This should be a solar panel up there. But it is neat. Now you're right about the automatic writing. They don't teach a lot of it because a lot of people feel that see, I was brought up through the National Spirit Association of Churches, so they're like more into mental mediumship, and a lot of that harkens back to the great age of fraud, so they have to watch that. But it's so neat to actually have seen somebody do it on TV. Now I do it up to I do a limited amount of it, but I first started using the automatic writing planche. The like a Ouija board planche,
Yeah.
but there's a hole in it to put the pencil in there. That is when I was a kid back and this is, and you know what, Shane, I'm just ashamed to tell you this, but this was back like in 1972 or 73 that I actually got a chance to use this. I was probably 9 or 10 years old.
I wasn't even born yet.
Yeah, I know that. I know that,
I'm just messing with you. I'm messing with you. I
Hey,
wasn't, but
hey, listen. You're an old soul in a new in a new Cadillac. That's just think of
there
it
you
like
go.
that,
There you go.
But it's so funny that I was exposed to it, but for some reason that's not what they want. They a lot of times they're looking for that wow factor where somebody comes through and is they're doing they're I'll just say they're doing the mouth thing where they're flapping their jaw and I call it personally pablum of the mouth, where you sort of just let everything fly through, and that seems
Yeah.
to be what they want. Now let's talk tech with you. Well, no, let's not talk tech yet. I want to pick your brain. Is that, I mean, and believe
Sure.
me, listen, ladies and gentlemen, 3/4 of Shane Pittman's body is brain. I'm just going to tell you that right now. He's a genius. He's a genius, and and we'll do that. No. I enjoy, when I've listen. I did my homework with you. I listened to a few of the casts out there. Just to get a nice feel for our conversation. And I was kind of impressed by some of the things you were talking about. Let me ask you this. This is something that's a little bit deeper,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not going to be tech. It's more in the philosophical realm.
Okay.
When we start talking about energies, and we're talking about, and I call them energetic personalities, and we're talking about spirits or ghosts or whatever, what's your take on the interdimensional aspects of it? Is it a possibility that we're having two dimensions kind of colliding, or am I just like, am I have or have I drank too much ale on a Friday night and came up with this myself?
No. It's the possibility is definitely out there. Um, I've been preaching this for the past few months. I've been studying what they call epigenetics,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a scientific take on how our bodies work. And for the longest time, scientists would always talk about the genes control your life. Your genes, your genetic makeup controls your whole life. And what scientists are starting to discover now is that's not the case. There was this one scientist, and God, I cannot. Um, Lipton, I forgot his first name, and I've been preaching about him so much lately. I'll remember his name in pretty soon, I'm sure. But he is a cell biologist, and he was working with stem cells and all of this stuff, and how cell behaviors work for years and years and years, and was actually teaching in universities. And he was doing an experiment one day, and this was 25 years ago, about he put different cells in three different containers and took the nucleus out of them. And we've always been taught the nucleus is the brain of the cell, right?
Right.
So he would take the nucleus out, and in one container he would introduce inflammatory properties. And what happened, the cells would react to that and move away from the inflammatory property, and they would start to get sick and diseased and stuff. Then he would take those same cells with the same genetic makeup into another container where they could flourish, and introduced vitamins and amino acids and stuff like that, and they replicated and they were healthy and they thrived. So what did this tell him is that it told him that our environment is what determines our life. External factors, not what's internal, like genetics and all this stuff, is what controls our life. And then I started to think about that, and started to think about, in the paranormal realm, how all of this coincides with each other. And he has this video, and it's out on YouTube, and you guys can check it out. It's called Energy is Everything. And he explained the concept or idea of possible reincarnation in a way that I've never thought about before, because I grew up in a Christian home. I was always told, no, that's not what happens. There's no possibility of that. And he was talking about that we receive a signal externally from our source, whatever that is. And we're each tuned into a particular broadcast where our cells respond accordingly, right? Well, he said, imagine a TV that is tuned into a certain broadcast signal, right? And somebody takes a bat to that TV and destroys it, kills it. It doesn't work anymore. Does that mean the broadcast signal dies too? Is that signal still broadcasting? Yeah, it just doesn't have a TV or a person to link up with. So then and trust me, he explains it a hell of a lot better than how I explain it. But he explained that, well, if that cell signal that's tuned into a unique signal has another TV that has a similar cellular structure or the similar makeup and links up to it, it doesn't matter if it's male, female, black, white, yellow, whatever, that TV is live again, broadcasting the signal. And he explained it, and I know I'm going around in circles and circles with your question, but he explained it in a way that if we consider that we are energy beings, right? We are energetic beings, and we have a certain signal that we're being broadcasted. Could we be coming in contact with things from other dimensions, from other times in our life? Could we be interacting with future versions of ourselves? And it's just blending together to where we are linking up at the right time, right place, and we're experiencing these things that right now we can't explain. It's absolutely possible, man. That's why spirits and ghosts, it's true. We could be communicating with people that have passed on and things like that. But I think there's so much more to all of this than just spirits and ghosts. There's so much more out there that meets the eye.
Agreed. For years, it was pounded in my head, with the lyceums, which is the spiritualist Sunday schools.
Mm-hmm.
Energy only changes. It can't be destroyed.
Right.
Thoughts are things. Things and thoughts are vibratory in nature. They are frequency. This is stuff that I was taught as a kid. Well, over the years, I've noticed that I've gone and I've had to work in different homes over the years. When I was a kid, I was like, I was in my early teens when I went to my first spirit rescue circle, and
right.
I mean, which is like crazy when I think about it now, because I was brought up Roman Catholic and spiritualist. And
Mm-hmm.
to that idea of like 13, 14 years old is to be able to be brought into that environment still blows my mind, because
Right.
I wouldn't take somebody that age now. But, it's funny when I think about it.
Yeah.
But it's wild because you think about these things as people have lived in these different locations all these years, right? Nothing happens. All of a sudden, someone enters into this location and you have activity. You have a reaction to them being in that environment. Why? Right person, right time, right vibratory makeup.
Yeah.
And I've always felt that is, I guess, the basis of hauntings, the basis of whatever. And as a medium, I know I could read everybody, but I can't read everybody good. I can't do it. I can't be on point for everybody. And that's
Right.
because energetically we may not jive. And that, and I mean, and that's something that you accept. But when you think about like overlapping dimensions, you start thinking about energy that's still, and that analogy. And by the way, I can't think of Mr. McLeod, Ryan McLeod said Bruce Lipton is his name.
Bruce.
Yep.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you for
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so
Brian,
much,
for
because I'm the one who I introduced him to this guy, and I couldn't remember his name. But real quick, Tim, not to
Sure,
interrupt, but have you,
please.
man? I've been preaching this, and Ryan could attest to this too. He's watching, and I appreciate you watching, Ryan, and everybody. Um, have you ever scientifically looked up how a thought is formed?
No, I have not.
Do it.
That I'm going to do that now.
Do it, because it will blow your mind. It will blow your mind. Thousands of neurons collide at a certain time, but where does the thought come from?
Now, see
Externally.
that right.
Think
That is
about that.
now it works in now I teach when I teach like seance and I teach dowsing and all that other fun stuff that I love to do. I teach it is probably it's not spirit that's moving anything. You're moving it.
Hmm.
It's idiomotor reflex or response. I mean, that's what's doing it. But where is it coming from? What is making you do those tiny micro moves that's affecting what's going on, or why are your fingertips like either, and now a lot of people will say this is ectoplasm, a lot of people say it's common sweat, but why is it doing that to make the planche move, or
Right.
whatever you're working with? Why is it? And I mean, I'm sure that you're familiar with the Philip experiments of
Yep.
1972 up in
Yep.
Toronto, and I mean, I witnessed something like this at one of the spiritualist churches that I did serve, where we asked, we were doing table tipping and we asked for clarification, and we got something different. We got a different name than what we were originally taught. And about 2 or 3 weeks later, a girl came in with a book where that name was spelled, and it was the exact name that we had brought up with the table. Now, where does that come from? To me, that's almost like a universal intelligence, or there's got to be something you want to call it God. There's something up there. There's something in the universe, in my opinion, that is bringing this through. And I
There's a
believe that,
source.
yeah,
There's a
there's some kind
source.
of a source, and
Hmm.
we are biological and electrical beings,
Yep.
and we are bringing it through. And the analogy of the broadcast, that just because the TV isn't working, but the broadcast is still out there. That is so on point, Shane. Oh my God. I am just like I
Oh,
am blown
I
away
I
by that right
I
now.
was blown away whenever he explained it the way he did, and then I started preaching to everybody that I knew. I was like, oh, if you look at this in layman's terms, and he explained it in layman's terms, it makes absolute sense. And then he was talking about there's a device that scientists use, doctors use, called a magnetoencephalograph, which is basically how they read brain activity.
Right,
But guess what? You know how an EEG, or I think, yeah, EEG, they hook it up to your head and
right,
all this stuff, and they read
right.
brain waves. Well, a magnetoencephalograph, the probes never touch your head. So how can they read the brain waves if it's never touching your head at all? It's external. We
Hmm.
are admitting external. You were talking about the Philip experiment and thought forms and tulpas and stuff like that. If these things are validated and these are real things, I think we glance over how powerful of a being we are.
True,
You
true.
think about something. If we can create a thought form like that, and I use this analogy all the time, is people say, "Well, I'm not sensitive. I can't pick up anything." All of this stuff. When people walk into a room after a couple had just got done fighting, and the old saying, "You cut the tension with a knife."
Exactly.
Um, if you
Exactly.
can if you can feel that, that means the couple was emitting something that you could pick up on energetically, which means you are more uh, empathic or sensitive than you may want to believe. It's we glance over this stuff all the time, especially looking over your shoulder when you're walking down an alleyway.
Hmm.
Sometimes that's driven just solely off of fear, and sometimes your gut instinct, um, is valid and is something that has saved your life at certain times.
Exactly.
So I mean, if you can pick up on something like that, that's not something just strictly biological. There's something more externally
Agreed.
that's pushing that, you know.
Agreed. I took classes with Tom Brown Jr. He's a big natural awareness guy, and he's a tracker, and he's an American mystic, is what he is, really, when you
Yeah.
break it right down to it. And his whole thing was you needed this in order to survive when we were in that hunter gatherer stage,
Mhm.
and you had to find where shelters were, and you had to find where it was safe, and you had to worry about like other tribes coming to kill you, and and you needed that. But as we started living in groups and living behind walls and becoming more of an agricultural society, we didn't use it. And
Right.
now, if you want to use it, all it is like muscle memory. That's the best way that I can describe it. And when I teach students, I always go and just explain to them, listen, you guys have it. Throw out the words gift. Throw out these words that make it special. It's an ability. It's part of your body. It's part of your mind. It's vibrational. You can figure out how to re-energize this and open it up again. And it's all energy. And people, once they start demystifying it, I always, because I'm not a excuse me, I'm not like a big like spirit guide guy, or I refer to them as energetic personalities. I guess it's just a
Right.
just a name. But
Right.
people have to realize that you are far more open than you realize. And I mean, it where does it come from? Why is that? It's not just your fight or flight that's jumping in. There's something more.
No,
It's
and yeah, it's the opposite, I believe, because science, and we'll bring it back to science for the people
yes,
that are wanting to marry the two. That way it makes sense to them. Well, scientifically, there's scientists are saying and psychologists are saying that 85 to 90% of people are living in active stress. Well, what happens in stress, right? It um, the blood rushes away from our core and it
right,
goes to our arms and legs. Why? Because it's the fight or flight that you were talking about, where it's our body is telling us we're in danger, so we need to run. So there's always a cost associated with that, though, because whenever the blood rushes to your external um, appendages and stuff like that, it's leaving an area. So it's leaving the gut, which handles your inflammatory and handles your um, nervous system and handles it, make sure that you're healthy. So whenever blood is rushing away from all of your vital organs, this is why people are sick all the time. This is why they can't focus on who they truly are, because they're always in active stress of this fight or flight. And once I saw that scientific part, this is why a lot of these Buddhist monks and all of these people, and they focus on the peace aspect instead of the fight or flight. This is when they can do amazing things, because they're honing into their um, natural ability. But the reason why we're having a hard time with it is because most of us are in active stress. How many times do you see, oh, I'm having an anxiety attack today, or I'm stressed, I'm depressed? The reason why we are the way we are is because we're in that active stress. And going back to the cells and how that works, whenever our cells are in chaos, this is why we're all sick. This is why our mind is cloudy. This is why all of these things are happening, because our cells are reacting to our environment, to our stressful situations that sometimes we put ourselves in willingly, and sometimes we're in it and we have to move in order for our bodies and our well-being to thrive. So it's been like an epiphany for me. It's almost like a fate thing that I was supposed to come across these different fields of study, because I have always been a skeptical person, and I've always wanted data to back up, because it's always, I think it's important. And I think when scientists are agreeing with certain things to where it's matching up with what we believe in the spiritual community, it's very exciting for me. And it's if you can't tell already, I ramble on about it because I get so excited about it. So
I think you're dead on, because too many people, you're right about living in a state of stress. And I think a lot of it has to do in it. And don't get me wrong, because thank God for the internet, because I get a chance to speak with a guy like you. I mean, that's that. But for every positive, there is a negative.
mm-hmm.
And we are bombarded daily by negative information. And we are bombarded not just through like your TV and the internet and the newspapers, but society itself. I mean, how many people do you know that when they're not a happy person, they're not a contented person, they wish they were somebody else? And people need to be able to take that step back and say, wait a minute, we got a break. But let's face it, what's one of the there's two main there's two main drugs that we see sponsoring all the shows out there. One is Viagra and Cialis. That's one, and the other one is for what? It's for Prozac or some other or Xanax or something else to go and calm the system down. And that to me signals that we are having a cognitive, not just a spiritual overload, but a cognitive overload. And you know as well as I do, whenever you have any kind of a cognitive overload, everything shuts down and it opens up your body to what we call, like in Reiki healers and all that, call disease, where you open yourself up to it. And people get sick. And that's where I think a lot of people who never got COVID and never got the booster, they live in a whole different mindset. And other people who have had the booster still have gotten so sick with it. Not just the booster itself, but I'm talking later on, they've gotten so sick with it. And I think that a lot of it has to do with the bombardment and how we process the world around us. And that's something that, like, and again, I'm take myself, I lived in, and you did too, in your former work, and I lived in my former work. It was a state of chaos.
Yeah.
And when you take that step away from it, all of a sudden everything levels out and your health gets better. And I know as a psychic and working in the psychic world and as a medium and as a member of a church, I know that I'm doing a better job at whatever I'm doing. And I think more people need that. And Peg Herman has written here, I just want to bring it up, that bombardment is a reason for meditation and linking in strongly to your own energy force shield to have those stressors bounce off of us instead of create the chaos. Yes, cognitive overload leads to health issues. And that's one of the biggest things. That's one of the biggest things out there. And as someone who has a chronic illness, so I won't call it an illness, I'll just call it's a situation. One of the big things that they tell you, you have to eliminate as much stress as possible, and you have to meditate in order to calm and bring that healing in. Now let's get back to the paranormal, Shane, because I could talk to you about that all day. You know what?
It is paranormal to a degree.
It is.
Because,
it is.
Trust me, I think it all goes hand in hand. It just different ways to look at it, but I think it goes hand in hand with each other. So
I definitely do, because the next question I want to hit you with is, when you start working in the paranormal field, a lot of people are just flatlined with it. And I mean, and I'm talking total tech, and they don't have a lot of spiritual background or like a belief system. And I always like to tell people you should have a little something. I'm not a religious thumper, I'm a person that just says spirituality is more important than a religious organization. But when we start talking about this, do you feel that the success in paranormal, not meaning the success of grabbing EVPs and that sort of thing, but the success of your work within the paranormal is because of the fact that you can marry the two, the paranormal, the metaphysical, spiritual type thing. Do you think that that's why you have been able to excel as far as you have?
I think that is one part of it for sure. I think also, because whenever I present it to other people and I present some of my ideas, from what I've learned over the years, um, what it boils down to is everybody truly is searching for something, right?
Mm-hmm.
To some degree,
Agreed.
some level, and I think it resonates with them because I'm on the search too. Uh, I've talked to other people, and sometimes they feel like they have all the answers, and I think we've all met those types of people, and it it shut me off from them because you know I'm not one of those people that know everything. In fact, I'm learning something new every single day. And I think it's the process of the search that resonates with a lot of people. It's like, look, I'm in the trenches right along with you. A lot of you have progressed way more than I have in my career and what I'm doing on an intellectual level and on an experience level. So I think why they resonate and why I've been successful is because I, number one, am very blessed. It's just one of those things I'm blessed to be able to do what I love to do. Number two is I tell people that, look, I'm just like you. I'm in the trenches with you, and let's learn together. And I think when you have that approach and um, you have that goal in mind, I think that's when things line up and good things happen. And like I said, I've been blessed um, to be in the field and do things that I love to do.
See, this is where I got in trouble with my own church and the church dogma and organization because I'm not an absolute guy. And I'm a person that says, you know what, there is no absolute answers out there. We are constantly evolving. What we learn, what we experience, how we react. We are
Mhm.
constantly evolving. And I had a situation where they were trying to rein me in.
Yeah.
And I was going through all the education in order to get ordained and this whole thing. And it ended up that I had to leave the church that I loved. I did. I had to leave it. And I left the whole organization for a number of years until I was able to go and find another organization that accepted me, that knew that I would respect their dogma, but yet they give me that extra like freedom to be able to go and explain and explore. And that's what I love about it. And people miss that a lot because
Yeah.
there's no experts. I mean, I've heard this, Shane, I've heard this for 20 some, 30 some years. There's no experts in the field. But according to a lot of people, they're experts, but by the way they bring it out.
Well, look,
And
we see in part and we know in part. Uh, I
yes,
think same with different mediums out there. There could be two or three mediums working together in a particular place, and one sees something that the other two don't, or
right.
two of them see something that one don't. But that doesn't mean that their gifts aren't valid. It means maybe that they're supposed to see certain things. So they see parts of a puzzle, you bring it all together and you get the full
Exactly.
picture. And I think all of us in in life, we see in part and we know in part, but bringing our experience into the mix and us putting it all together and working
Exactly.
together is
Yeah.
when we get the full picture.
That's exactly it. And I'll be honest with you, I've worked with a lot of different mediums and different locations. And I swear to God that I've got to be the biggest duh out there because some other mediums get like a thousand things, and I'll get only one thing, but it is like super focused on it. And again, that comes with training, that comes with your biological and physical, mental, spiritual makeup. how you
And it
read the energy.
could be what you're meant to pick up on.
But that's exactly it. And
Yeah.
people are like, well, how come they can get this and you can't? It's because we're all different. And it's like, why? It's if take handwriting. My handwriting is not like your handwriting, but yet we can go and write in cursive the same letters. That's just the difference. That's all it is. It's just the difference. We're
We
just
all have a different broadcast signal.
That's right. That's
And
right.
all have a different channel, a different thing that we're linked up to. So things could be differently than somebody else. We don't all have to be the same, because if we were, it would be really, really boring. And, if everybody was like me, I mean, I'd get bored quick because I'm not a very fascinating guy. But
neither am I, buddy. Seriously, the two of us can sit in the basement and watch old movies.
At least I'd have somebody with me in the basement instead of being by myself.
Oh, but that's exactly it. I had some people say, "Oh, you live such an exciting life," and I'm thinking to myself, "Not really." It just sounds a lot better than what it is. Just because I stumble around more. That's the only difference. Now, I listen. This is a hotbed art, sort of a hotbed subject, and I want to ask your opinion on it. I'm seeing, and I have a problem with it being brought out on TV so much because I think it's just for sensationalism. But the whole thing about, and you were brought up hardcore. You were brought up hardcore Christian.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was brought up Roman Catholic, and again, spiritualism, the spiritualist. And in the spiritualist religion, we're not taught angels and demons. We're kind of taught like guides and stuff, but it's
Right.
more lower energies and higher energies. And I spoke with an exorcist once, and he had kind of explained to me that, that was my epiphany when I thought I knew everything. He kind of explained it to me that, like my idea of higher energies would be their idea of angels and thus demons and that minions and that sort of thing. But what's your opinion that some shows go out there and everything is demonic, everything is bad, everything is nasty? uh I mean, I don't find that case valid in my studies. I've found a lot of nasty things out there, but on the other hand, I found things that are just misunderstood by the people
Right.
who are living there. What's your opinion on that? Because I'm fascinated to hear this because I super respect your opinion on this one. Anybody
thank
who
you.
seriously, anybody who was brought up in that, in a strict religious fashion, because I respect all religions. It's just that I mean, sometimes it's like I have to try to explain my view to people, to clients who, are terrified that somebody came in
Right.
and said it was a demon because, they're influenced by maybe what's on TV.
Right. So I try to be really careful with this because I have friends on some of these shows, and I respect them. There's a lot of different methods of how people investigate, and how I look at the whole angels and demons and things like that. There's positive and there's negative, right? And we've talked about before about thought forms and tulpas and things like that. And I think that people's perception of certain things, is how they portray it, is their perception of what they feel is going on, but it may not be the truth. Like you said, it could be misunderstood. The energies could be off. It's all about positive and negative. But I think a lot of times these things could be going on. The negative stuff can be going on. The positive stuff can be going on. But I tell a lot of people, especially ones that are just trying to start out in the field and do these things, I think intention is everything.
Correct. Yeah.
Intention is everything. If you're going into a situation, and it doesn't have to be a paranormal situation or like an investigation, but even in life, you go through life always focusing on the negative. 9 times out of 10, you're going to get negative in return. It's just like cause and effect. Same with positive. If you're going into a situation where you're seeking out the positive, then 9 times out of 10, you're going to find positive in the situation. And maybe in some of these shows, maybe they're going in and their intention is, okay, we're going to find something nasty. We're going to find the nastiest energy here, and they may get it. And I can't say 100% that they are not picking that up or they're not getting it, but I do know that if they're going in with the intent of I'm going to find this nasty thing and draw it out, then most times that's what's going to happen. So I'm kind of vague with that because, like I said, I do have friends in the field and in some of these shows, and I want to respect their way, but at the same time, that's my opinion. I think intention is everything. I believe there is positive and negative. There's a quote, and I can't remember who it was from again, but they're like, "Look, people are not good or evil; they're both."
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
true. So
The
what
du
you
the duality of man. It's
right.
the
So
duality of man.
what you feed more is what you're going to get, and I think it's external too. So what you're
Yes.
looking for more is what you are going to get in return. And maybe some groups are focused on let's pull out this negative, and they're going to get that, and that's what's going to be portrayed. And then there's other groups that let's pull out the positive, and they're going to get that. And I think it just depends on which group is wanting to do what.
The natural laws. So with that spirit we follow, spiritualists follow, like attracts like.
Yep.
You're gonna and Debbie Emerson just said, and I put it in the room. You're gonna get what you look for. You're
Yep.
going to find it. And I know for a fact that when I first the very first time I went to the Hinsdale House in the southern tier of New York
Mm-hmm.
State, which is one of the classic houses, back from the 1970s that when I, again, growing up before you were born, Shane, we did actually have hauntings back then. But I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Shane. I had to bring that one. I
No,
had to say that.
It's like good. I wasn't going to say it again. I wasn't going to like throw something out there just joking around. Like I didn't know caves had hauntings. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say.
Hey, I listen. I'm sure I'm sure all you got to do is look hard enough. You'll find it. But
yeah,
it's funny because when I was up there in 2011, I had done my research. I had interviewed the lady who had lived there during the peak of the hauntings. I had talked to people who had rented the place during the lulls. I had really gone and I was prepared for it. And they were going to tear the house down. The reason why we went up there was to the photograph it and film it for posterity because it was a huge urban legend, basically. And I always remember my friend Joe Perry and I are driving there and we're talking about it. And you know what, Shane? When we got there, it was everything that we had thought it would be. We had projected it out. Whatever it was when we got there, it was, it obliged us. It obliged us. And I'll always remember that. And it's probably one of the peak moments I've ever had. Someday, when we get together, I'll tell you the experience. But hey, because we're running out of time, but I have to ask you, this is the question of the night, Shane. Are you ready for this? I
yeah.
wish I had some music, some, because this is the question of the night.
Drum roll.
Somewhere I found out that you and I are very much alike in one aspect. You ready for this?
What's that?
I heard that you and Dave Schrader used to go to thrift stores and Goodwills when you're on the road. Is that true?
That is absolutely true.
Wait a minute, Shane. Air hug. You're getting an air hug from me because I'm telling you that is what I love to do.
that was our idea of fun. What we would do as because poor Cindy, we could not be around her because we didn't want to taint any of the evidence and things like that. So she'd go off and do her own thing, and me and Dave would go and do our thing. And our thing was, let's look up the closest Goodwills and let's go to them and see if we can find any treasure in these places. And it was just something that we did that it was cool. And then we would go and find cool cemetery spots. We went to Babe Ruth's, where he was buried, and different places like that too. But yeah, it's absolutely true. We had a lot of fun doing that. And We did it quite a lot in multiple cities. So,
I knew, Shane, there was something that I liked about you, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Now I know. Now I know. You are a true brother of the thrift, baby. You
that's
are a
right.
true brother.
That's right.
And that's what's so great. Tell everybody how they can get a hold of you and what you're doing. I want you to, because I know you have a busy schedule and that you're going to be all over the place. And and let it go, baby. Just let everybody know where they can see the fantastic, effervescent, iridescent, I will say the beyond glorious Shane Pittman.
Well, again, you're way too kind. But official ShanePittman.com. That's my website. I try to keep that up with different events that I'm doing. You can find me on Twitter at Starring Shane, Facebook Shane Pittman, Instagram at Starring Shane. And I try to update and try to keep up to date with the events and stuff that's going on. May is going to be really busy. May 14th is the Roswell, Georgia Ghost Walk, and we do that. We did it last year, and it was really successful. We're doing it again. You can find that at roswellghosttour.com/reservations. You can sign up for that and join us, and we'll do a ghost walk. And I bring some equipment too, so we'll do a little bit of investigating in some of these different locations. I have a new show coming out that hopefully will be coming out this year sometime. You know how networks go, so it's whenever they want to air it is when they air. So I've filmed for something that should be out this year, and I'm working on another project right now. It's picked up some steam, so we'll see how it goes. But that's pretty much it. Just trying to stay busy, trying to stay out there, and trying to do some events with people and meet as many people as I can. And that's it.
Well, we're going to be together. Now, you're going to be down at Sleepy Hollow, correct, in October?
Yes. Yeah. And you're going to be in Michigan too.
Yep,
So
I'm going to be up in Michigan. So we're going to actually get a chance to hang out a little bit for a change.
Got a phone call and I didn't. You good? Sorry about that.
No problem. We're good. We're good. Because now I would have loved to have been able to talk to you more, but last year I totally lost my voice in Michigan. So, I mean, there was I couldn't, the next day I still was raspy and I couldn't talk. So I'm hoping to be able to go and be, now Dave Schrader, who is now my hero, actually turned me on to this little spray to protect my
ease. Yeah. The vocal ease or something like that.
That's exactly what I'm using. And it works fantastic. Let me, we have a couple seconds left. So I want to ask you this.
Okay.
A lot of times, now I was brought up using old school methods. I mean, I really was, because back then, I mean, dowsing rods were like that was the thing. I mean, that was like a K2 meter or, and I mean, I don't even want to tell you this, Shane, but I mean, I still have cassette recordings from awesome. EVP sessions. And have you ever worked with the old school stuff?
Yeah, like the old cassette stuff. Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of times it's cool to bring those back out, because again, I've caught fantastic stuff with just the old style cassette recorders. Really interesting stuff that to this day I can't explain what we were picking up. So I think they all have a place still. For any of us to say, oh, we shouldn't be using this or that. Look, this is a trial and error field. This is exactly all it is. And it is, we don't know what we're communicating with fully. Sometimes we don't know exactly the levels that we're reaching. So I think it's fair game, and I think it's got a place, and I think we should utilize what we have.
Now, I'm a guy that was brought up old school seance, post-Victorian type deal. And we used, the chalkboards. And I can say that most of those were, were fraudulent. I'll just come right out and say it. I've only witnessed once in all my life where I can't explain a single word that was written on a chalkboard during a seance.
Right.
And where it was always in front of us. And, I mean, it wasn't, a lot of times they used to put it underneath the chair of the medium, and that, there's a lot of extra fraud that comes out with that. But I was being interviewed on a Canadian podcast. He uses an Etch-a-Sketch. It's genius. It's
That's
genius.
cool.
So I had my wife make a little bag for it, and I put it in the bag. And, I've never had actually a word, but I don't understand, for no one touching it, why I've got the squiggle. So something affected it in some way, shape, or form, whether it was energy being, focused on it or something moving it. But there is nothing out there that you can't, that you could not use. And I absolutely love the fact that there's just so much that we have to learn, and there's so much out there that we can work with. And one of the things that people say to me is, geez, I wish I could afford. I really wish I could afford, this fancy equipment. And, Shane, I'm at the age where, in financial level, where I can afford a little bit of the nice equipment,
Right.
and interesting stuff. And again, being a tech guy like you, I love it because it's just so interesting, and it just blows my mind, the stuff that we get. But then, I take a styrofoam cup and I rub it in my arm and put it in the middle of the floor, and all of a sudden it goes flying across the room. Why is that? The static electricity affects. I mean, there's just so much that you can work with. So that's
and nowadays, I think your body is one of the greatest tools that you can use, especially when you're going out, trusting your instinct, trusting your gut in a lot of aspects. But even on Amazon now, that they have cheap recorders, 18 to 20 something bucks, that you could pick up, and that'd be a start. Take that. And I've gotten some really excellent evidence just off of EVPs, just things like that, just off of a recorder. So you can go and start with that and then build as you go.
It's fantastic. Now, Shane, stay on the line for a couple of minutes. I want to thank you properly. And seriously, I just want to let you know that this was one of my favorite shows ever. I'm going to tell you that right now, Shane, because it was so great to be able to go pick your mind and really talk about some kind of deep stuff that I don't get a chance to talk all the time. So stay tuned, baby, and I'll be right back with you. And I'm going to say
thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on, man.
Oh, no, the honor is mine, baby. And let me tell you what, you still are handsome.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Look at that hairline. Look at that hairline. Now you got me jealous. I'll be right back. I'll be right back with you, Shane. And that's Shane Pittman. Isn't he great? I mean, today was one of those shows that I really enjoyed. And, I don't get a chance to be able to go and really, and I'm not lying to you guys, I don't get a chance to really get into the nuts and bolts with somebody who really understands what we're talking about and all the different layers that we work with. So this was fantastic. So guys, thank you so much. You guys always honor me by hanging out here. I know it's Tuesday night. I know a lot of you guys, the bowling leagues are over, and you got nothing else to do, and it's not summer yet. I appreciate you guys hanging out. This is Tim Shaw, and you're listening to what? The Black Cat Lounge here, where the elite meet, next to the dumpster transfer station. Where else would you be? Take care, guys. Ciao. Be safe. Be good. Pray for Ukraine. Pray for peace in the world. Bye-bye, guys.